Adekunle froze in the doorway. Chioma was hugging the twins on the rug. The girls, who had been crying for 3 days, were now sleeping peacefully on her chest. He dropped his briefcase. The noise didn't wake them. Chioma raised her eyes to him, pulling the 2 girls tighter against her. Adekunle remained motionless for a few more seconds, trying to process the impossible scene before him. The twins, Taiwo and Kehinde, were sleeping peacefully in Chioma's arms, their breathing even, their small faces relaxed for the first time in months. He dropped his leather briefcase on the floor, not caring about the thud. The sound woke no one. Chioma looked up at him without letting go of the children, without rush, without guilt. There was a firmness in her gaze that Adekunle did not expect from an employee. It was pure protection. They just fell asleep, she said, in a low but firm voice. They were crying for 3 hours straight. Adekunle felt his stomach clench. He had heard the crying from his study, had turned up the volume on his video conference to drown it out, had pretended that dealing with it was not his responsibility. "You are the house help," he said, but his voice came out weak, almost like a question. "Your job is to keep the house in order, not look after the children." Chioma adjusted her posture on the rug, holding the 2 girls with a natural firmness. "The house is clean, Olga. The floors are mopped, the clothes are washed and put away. But your daughters were choking on their own tears while you pretended not to hear them from upstairs." The sentence hit him like a punch to the gut. Adekunle took his hands out of his trouser pockets, running his fingers through his hair. "I work 12 hours a day to make sure they have everything they need. The best health insurance, a specialist pediatrician, nannies with impeccable references. They don't need everything," Chioma replied, looking directly into his eyes, not flinching. "They need their father." The silence that followed was as heavy as lead. Adekunle walked to the sofa, sat on the edge, rested his elbows on his knees, his hands trembling slightly. "Every time I look at them, I remember the hospital. I remember Funke asking me to take good care of them before she closed her eyes forever. I promised I would be the best father in the world, and look what I've become." Chioma freed one hand from holding Kehinde and quickly touched Adekunle's knee. The gesture lasted only 2 seconds, but it was enough for him to feel the human warmth that had been missing from the house for months. "The pain doesn't lessen by running away from the girls, Olga. It only grows, and they will grow up thinking their father can't stand to look at them because they remind him of the mother who died." Adekunle lifted his head. His eyes were red, tired. "They don't eat properly. They break their toys. They don't let anyone near them. The 5 nannies I hired said they are uncontrollable." The pediatrician suggested psychiatric evaluation. Chioma gave a faint, almost sad smile. "Today they ate 2 full plates of yam pottage for lunch. We sat on the kitchen floor. We ate with our hands, we made a mess, then we cleaned up together, singing a silly song. They laughed until they got hiccups." Adekunle watched her with full attention. He noticed her deep-set dark circles, the small scratch on her neck, the stray strands of hair stuck to her sweaty forehead. "Why did you do that? It's not your job to care for them. I hired you to clean the house." Chioma pulled her hand back, hugging Kehinde with both arms again. "Because I know what it's like to grow up in a big, empty house. I know what it's like to be scared at night and have no one to comfort you. I know what it's like to call for someone and only hear an echo." He frowned. During her job interview 4 months ago, he had only asked about her cleaning experience and availability. He knew absolutely nothing about Chioma's life. "I need you to teach me," he said without thinking, the words tumbling out before any rational filter. "Teach you what? How to hold them like this? How to make them stop crying? How to be the father they need?" Chioma nodded slowly, as if she had been waiting for this request for a long time. "Take off your jacket. The fabric is stiff and cold. They like soft things that smell like a person, not like the dry cleaners." Adekunle stood up, took off his navy blue jacket, threw it on the armchair, undid the top 3 buttons of his white shirt, rolled up the sleeves to his elbows, and knelt on the rug right in front of Chioma. The distance between them was less than a foot. He smelled laundry soap and a faint, pleasant fragrance from her uniform. "Support her head with your left hand. Rest her back on your right arm. Don't squeeze too hard, but be firm. They need to feel secure, not afraid of falling." Chioma handed Taiwo to him with extreme care, guiding his arms into the correct position. During the transfer, their arms touched. Her skin was warm, soft. The girl stirred, whimpered softly, then snuggled her face against her father's chest. Adekunle closed his eyes. The warmth of his daughter's body went through his shirt, straight to his heart. A tear rolled down his face and fell into Taiwo's dark, curly hair. "You're doing very well, Olga," Chioma said, watching intently. "Breathe slowly." She can feel it if you're tense. She's so small, he murmured, amazed. So perfect. How could I have gone so long without doing this? They need security. You are the only real security they have left in the entire world. Adekunle opened his eyes and looked at Chioma. The afternoon sunlight reflected in her brown eyes, creating little golden flecks. Was it Kehinde who made that scratch on your neck? Chioma touched the mark with her fingertip. It was. She was scared during her bath this morning. She scratched me by accident when I tried to lift her out of the tub. He felt the urge to touch her face, to thank her in a way that words couldn't express, but he held his daughter with both hands. I'm going to increase your salary this month. Double it, in fact, for the trouble, for the extra work. Chioma's face immediately turned serious. She held Kehinde tighter, the muscles in her face hardening. I did not do this for money, Oga. If you think I took care of your daughters to get a raise, you can take Kehinde right now, and I will leave this house. The sharp tone of her voice surprised him. Adekunle realized his mistake instantly. No, please, that's not what I meant. I just don't know how to thank you for what you've done. I don't know how to repay you. She relaxed her shoulders slightly. You can thank me by being present, by coming home at 6 p.m. and sitting on the floor to play, by reading them a story before bed, doing the voices of the characters. I have a company with 200 employees, contracts worth millions of naira, meetings that decide the future of entire families. Oga, you have 2 3-year-old daughters who lost their mother. The company won't cry if you miss a day. They will cry their whole lives if they continue to lose their father too. Adekunle remained on his knees, holding Taiwo. He looked up at Chioma, who seemed more imposing in that moment than any investor in any boardroom. Stay, he pleaded, his voice softer than he intended. Stay here with us. I'll change your contract, triple your salary. I'll hire someone else for the cleaning. I want you to take care of them. I want you to help me save what's left of my family. Chioma stood up slowly, carrying Kehinde, walked to the sofa and sat down, laying the girl on her lap. I am not a nanny. I have never been a nanny. Adekunle got up carefully and sat beside her on the sofa. The distance between them was only a hand's breadth. I'm not asking you to be a nanny. I'm asking you to help me learn how to be a real father. Chioma looked at his hands. They were trembling slightly, but they held Taiwo with a gentleness she hadn't expected from a businessman used to controlling everything. I accept to help, she said softly. But I have one very clear, non-negotiable condition. He leaned in, paying close attention to every word. Anything. Chioma took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. You will promise that you will never again run away when the crying starts. You will come down from your study. You will sit on the floor. You will hold them until they stop crying, even if it takes hours, even if you have an important meeting, even if it hurts. Adekunle swallowed hard. I promise. And you will have dinner with them every day. You will ask them how their day was. You will listen to the crazy stories they make up. You will laugh at their unfunny jokes. I promise. And on weekends, you will play. You will get your clothes dirty. You will make a mess. You will be a real father, not just a financial provider. He nodded, holding her gaze. I promise everything, every word. Chioma moved a little closer. Kehinde continued to sleep on her lap, completely relaxed. Then we'll start now. They will wake up hungry in an hour. You will prepare their snack with me, and you will learn how to make it just the way they like it. Adekunle felt something shift inside his chest. It wasn't just relief. It was hope, reborn after being buried for months. Chioma, he said, his voice lower. Yes? Thank you for not giving up on them when I had. She held his gaze for a second too long to be casual. I would never give up. They are too special. And you are too, Olga. You just forgot for a while. You are special too, he said without thinking, the words coming straight from his heart. The silence that followed was different from all the others. There was something in the air between them that was not just professional gratitude. It was a mutual recognition of something larger, deeper, that neither of them knew how to name yet. Chioma was the first to look away. Let's focus on the girls for now. That's what matters. For now, he repeated, and there was a promise in those 2 words that they both understood perfectly. Taiwo stirred in Adekunle's lap, slowly opening her eyes. She looked at her father with those big eyes, just like Funke's, but without the fear Adekunle had expected to see. Daddy, she said, her voice hoarse with sleep. Adekunle felt his heart race. Hello, my princess. Did you have a good sleep? You stayed? I stayed. And I won't run away anymore when you need me. Taiwo smiled, a small but genuine smile, the first Adekunle had seen in months. She rested her head on his chest again, sighing contentedly. Kehinde also began to wake up on Chioma's lap. The two girls looked at each other, still sleepy, and Kehinde stretched her little hand towards her father. Adekunle extended his free hand, intertwining his fingers with his daughter's small ones. "Now there are 4 of us," Taiwo murmured, looking from Chioma to her father. Adekunle looked at Chioma, who was watching the scene with a different glint in her eyes. "We are," he confirmed, and for the first time in months the word family once again made complete sense in his life. The following weeks brought a completely new routine to the house. Adekunle cancelled non-essential meetings, delegated responsibilities he once considered non-transferable. He came home at 5 p.m. every day. Chioma patiently guided him through the rituals of fatherhood he had avoided for so long. Unhurried baths, dinner on the living room floor when the girls asked, made-up stories at bedtime, silly games that made everyone laugh until their stomachs hurt. The girls blossomed like flowers after the rain. The constant crying gave way to laughter that echoed through the house. The nightmares drastically reduced. They would run to the door when they heard Adekunle's car approaching, shouting, "Daddy is home!" with a joy that made his heart overflow. But something else was happening in the house. Something that was growing silently between Adekunle and Chioma. In the moments when the girls played alone in their room, they would find themselves talking in the kitchen, exchanging glances that lasted a second longer than necessary, their hands brushing when they passed plates, creating a silent intimacy that neither of them named, but both of them felt. One night, after putting the girls to bed, they were in the living room, tidying up the toys scattered on the floor. The silence was comfortable, filled with a complicity built day by day. "Adekunle," Chioma said suddenly, stopping her task of putting away building blocks. He stopped too and looked at her. There was something different in her tone, something more serious. "I need to tell you something important, something about me that might change everything between us." Adekunle dropped the toys, giving her his full attention. "You can tell me anything, whatever it is." Chioma sat on the sofa, her hands clasped in her lap. "When I came here 4 months ago, I didn't tell you the whole truth about my life. I only told you what I thought you needed to hear to hire me." Adekunle felt his whole body go on alert. "Did you lie on your CV?" She shook her head slowly. "I didn't lie about my skills or experience, but I hid important parts of my story. And now, those parts are interfering with what I feel for you and the girls." He moved closer, sitting on the sofa beside her, leaving a respectful space between them. "Then tell me everything. Don't be afraid. I won't judge you." Chioma looked down at her own hands. "I grew up in an orphanage in Agege until I was 10. I never knew my biological parents. I was fostered by a good family, but they were always moving because of work. When I turned 15, they couldn't afford to keep me anymore, and I went back to the orphanage. I started working in people's houses very early to support myself." Adekunle folded his arms, listening to every word, not interrupting. "In one of my jobs, about 3 years ago, something happened that marked me deeply. The Oga accused me of stealing his wife's expensive gold watch. He lost the watch, searched everywhere, and decided someone in the house had taken it. The blame fell on me." Her voice faltered slightly. Adekunle clenched his jaw, feeling a preemptive anger. "You hadn't stolen it. Never. I always took care of everything with the utmost care. I never touched anything of value without permission." Still, he threatened to call the police. The wife sided with him. "I had no way to prove my innocence. I left there, with a reputation as a thief." Adekunle took a deep breath, trying to control the anger he felt towards these strangers who did this to her. "And later they found out you were innocent?" "Yes. A week later, their teenage daughter found the watch in her own handbag, forgotten after a party. But no one called me to apologize. I spent months without being able to find a job because the reference from that house spoiled my name everywhere." Adekunle looked away for a moment, ashamed of his own social class. "That's why you omitted that job when you came here." "Exactly. I made up a reference that never existed. I desperately needed the job. I couldn't stand sleeping in cheap guest houses anymore, sharing a room with strangers." Adekunle looked back at her, seeing the real vulnerability behind the strength she always showed. "You thought that if I knew, I would judge you just as they did. I did. In the interview, you seemed distant, cold, focused only on efficiency. I thought you would be just another Oga who sees his house help as a disposable item." He was silent for a moment, acknowledging the painful truth in her words. "Perhaps I would have judged you back in my old state of mind. But today, after everything I've seen you do for Taiwo and Kehinde, after seeing how peacefully they sleep in your arms, it's impossible to imagine you stealing anything." Chioma bit her lip to hold back the emotion rising in her throat. I needed you to know the truth, because sometimes I feel like you're starting to trust me too much. And if one day this story comes out through other means, it will look like I hid it out of malice. Adekunle moved even closer, resting his hands on the sofa near her knees. From today, if anyone says anything about you to me, I will answer them myself, and I will answer loudly for everyone to hear. She nodded, as if a great weight had been lifted from her shoulders. There's one more thing I need to confess, she continued, her voice a little firmer. Something about what I'm feeling here. Adekunle's heart quickened. Go on. I haven't had a blood family for a long time. But in the last few months, I've started to feel something inside me that feels a lot like belonging. And it scares me because I don't know if it's real or if it's just loneliness. Adekunle was completely still. Are you talking about me or the girls? All three of you, she answered without hesitation. When I look at Taiwo and Kehinde, I feel a love so deep that sometimes I forget they're not my biological daughters. And when you come home from work and they both run into your arms, I feel a happiness that goes beyond professional satisfaction. He absorbed every word, understanding perfectly what was hidden behind them. What kind of happiness? Chioma lowered her gaze, her cheeks flushing slightly. I know my place in this house. I'm an employee. I sleep in the boys' quarters. I get paid at the end of the month. But I've started to think of the girls as if they were mine too. And I've started to look at you in a way I shouldn't. The silence that formed was dense, charged with meaning. Adekunle felt a mix of relief and fear, because her words struck a chord with something he had been trying to deny for weeks. Do you think you're the only one who feels this? He asked softly. Chioma slowly raised her face. You too? When you came here, I just wanted someone who would clean the house quietly and not bother me with conversation or advice. I was tired of hearing everyone's opinion on how to raise my daughters. He ran a hand over his face, remembering. Then I saw you, wiping floors, washing dishes, always quiet, always discreet. I thought you were just another temporary staff. But without realizing it, I started to pay attention to your voice with the girls, even with my study door closed. Adekunle leaned forward, moving closer to her. I would hear you singing to them, teaching them to count to 10, calming their nightmares. I would stand there, holding the doorknob, wanting to come in but afraid of disrupting something that was working. He took a deep breath. The day I found you with both of them asleep in your lap, something completely shifted inside me. I saw someone doing what I should have been doing, and I saw my daughters responding to that care in a way they never responded to me. Chioma wrung her fingers nervously. And you felt jealous? I felt relieved, because finally, someone was taking real care of us. And I realized you weren't just taking care of the girls. Adekunle looked directly into her eyes. You were taking care of me too. What do you mean? You started leaving coffee ready for me when I woke up early for meetings. You started putting little notes in the girls' lunchboxes with sweet messages. You started reminding me of important appointments, like you were my personal assistant. He gave a small smile. And suddenly, I realized I was waiting for lunchtime just to hear your laugh from the kitchen. I would catch myself choosing a tie, wondering if you would notice. Chioma's face blushed more intensely, but she didn't look away. I thought I was imagining things. Sometimes, when you got too close, I would feel my heart race, but I would try to shut down the feeling immediately. I would think about the social difference, people's reactions, what your family would say. I'm looking at you now, he said simply, and I don't care about anything else but this. They stared at each other for long seconds. The distant sound of a car passing on the street came through the half-open window, but couldn't break the intensity of the moment. Chioma took a deep breath, trying to organize her thoughts. Adekunle, I needed to tell you all this because I don't want to live in an illusion. I don't want to create expectations where there might be no real future. Adekunle moved a little closer, smelling the faint scent of soap that always accompanied her. You are not a problem for my daughters. You are the best thing that has happened to them since their mother died. And to me too. Chioma's eyes filled with tears at the mention of Funke. I'm afraid of taking a place that isn't mine. Funke will always be their mother. I would never try to replace her. No one will replace Funke, he affirmed with firmness. But there is room in their hearts for more people. They have already chosen you, in a way they can't even explain yet. Adekunle smiled, remembering. Last week, their teacher asked them to draw their family. Taiwo drew a picture with 4 people. When I asked who was who, she pointed to me, to Kehinde, to herself, and to a woman with her hair tied back. I asked if it was Mummy in heaven. She said it was Auntie Chioma who lives here with us. Chioma brought a hand to her mouth, moved. She really did that? She did. The drawing is in my desk drawer at the office. I look at it every morning before I leave for work. Emotion completely took over her face. I've never had anyone put me in a family drawing. I've always been temporary in people's lives. When the job ended, I'd leave. And that was it. I was never part of anything lasting. Adekunle slowly reached out and touched the back of her hand. The contact was light, but firm. Chioma didn't pull away. Maybe it's time to stop being temporary and become a permanent resident. She let out a nervous laugh, but didn't move her hand away. You make it sound so simple. It's not simple, I know. There's the age difference, the social class, the background. There's the memory of Funke, which I respect and always will. There's my family's reaction. They will have a lot to say. There's your history with former employers. There will be malicious gossip. Adekunle paused, organizing his thoughts. But there's also the reality inside this house that only the four of us truly know. And when I think about the future, I can no longer imagine it without you. Chioma wiped the corner of her eye with her fingertip. I don't want you to confuse gratitude with love. Sometimes loneliness and desperation can deceive us. I know the difference, he answered with absolute certainty. I'm grateful to many people who helped me after Funke's death, but I only feel the urge to come home early because of you. When I'm near you, my body reacts in a way that has nothing to do with gratitude. She felt a warmth rise to her face but kept her hand under his. If this is really true, then we have a serious problem on our hands, because I don't want to enter your lives through the wrong door. I don't want the girls to see me as someone who stole their mother's place. Adekunle took a deep breath, already imagining difficult conversations ahead. They are still little. The cruel world hasn't reached them yet. We are the ones who decide how our story will be told. If we ever need to explain, I want it to be like this. Their father was lost after he became a widower. He didn't know how to take care of anyone anymore. And an honest woman appeared. She first took care of the girls, then helped take care of him. And together, they built a new family where everyone feels safe. Chioma listened to every word attentively but shook her head slowly. There's still the practical issue. I live here as an employee. I receive a salary. If anything happens between us and it goes wrong, I lose my job, my home, and the only family I have. It's too big a risk. Adekunle knew she was absolutely right. Then let's do this properly, with care and responsibility. First, we change your position in this house. It no longer makes sense for you to live in the boys' quarters as if you're temporary. He organized the proposal in his head. I can register you as the girls' official guardian. A proper contract, full health insurance, paid leave, 13th month, everything according to the law. And we separate things clearly. Work is one thing. Feelings are another. Chioma let out a short laugh. The way you talk, it sounds like you're negotiating a business merger. He realized the absurdity and smiled sheepishly. It's what I do best. But with you, it's different. I don't want it to seem like I'm trying to buy you. I know that, she replied more softly. But I still need time to fully understand what I'm feeling. It's been a long time since I've truly trusted any man. Adekunle nodded respectfully. Time. Then we can continue as we are, taking care of the girls together, sharing the daily routine, seeing if this feeling grows, or if it was just a phase. The problem, she said, looking firmly into his eyes, is that I feel it has already grown. And the girls are noticing too. He frowned, worried. What do you mean? The other day, when I cut my finger peeling potatoes, you took my hand to put a plaster on it. When you finished, you kissed the plaster without realizing, just like you do with the girls when they get hurt. Taiwo saw everything. Adekunle closed his eyes for a moment, remembering. And what did she say? At night, when I was putting her to bed, she asked if we were going to get married. She asked if I was going to be her new mummy. Adekunle's heart ached, imagining his daughter asking that question with all the innocence in the world. And what did you say? That adults take time to decide these important things. That the most important thing is for everyone to love and respect each other. But she insisted. She said I look at you the same way her mummy looked at you in the old photos. Adekunle was silent, touched by his daughter's observation. They are much smarter than we imagine. Much more. And that's exactly why I don't want to lie to them, or to myself. If we decide to go down this path, it has to be in a way that doesn't hurt anyone. Adekunle thought for a few seconds, formulating a proposal that made sense. All right, let's agree on this. For now, we don't change anything officially. We continue living as we are, but consciously and honestly. He leaned forward. We have dinner together. We play together. We take care of them together. But we make it clear to the girls that we are a team, working side by side for their well-being. If, over time, this feeling between us gets stronger and more stable, then we'll talk to them in a way that's appropriate for their age. Chioma was silent, processing the proposal. And what if I realize I can't handle the pressure, that the emotional weight is too much? Then we adjust the plan, he answered promptly. Maybe you can stop living here and just come during the day. Or maybe I'll help you find another house, another job, if that's what you want. I don't want you to feel trapped by obligation. She watched him closely, trying to gauge if he was being completely sincere. You would help me leave, even knowing it would mean losing the girls too? If it was what's best for you, yes. But, to be completely honest, I don't want you to go. Neither do the girls. When you're off on weekends, the house feels lifeless. So I'm going to fight for you to want to stay. Chioma took a deep breath, touched by the honesty of his answer. I don't know if I'll ever be completely ready to hear a declaration of love without being suspicious of the intentions. But the fact that you're willing to let me go makes me believe a little more. He gave a slight, affectionate smile. I didn't say I'd let you go easily. I said if it's for your own good, I'll accept it. But until then, I'll use every good thing I have to make you want to stay forever. They laughed together at that line, breaking some of the emotional weight of the conversation. His laugh mixed with hers in a natural, light way. Just then, a faint cry came from the hallway. It was Kehinde, waking from a nightmare. Chioma stood up first, out of automatic impulse. Adekunle rose right after. Let me go today, he said, determined. She stopped midway. Are you sure? She usually asks specifically for me when she wakes up scared. That's exactly why. She needs to get used to me in these moments too. Chioma agreed, taking a step back. I'll stay here. If she doesn't calm down, I'll come and help. Adekunle walked down the dark hallway, entered the girl's room, and picked Kehinde up. His movement still a bit clumsy, but much more confident than months before. Chioma stayed in the living room, listening to his low, gentle voice singing the same song she used to sing. She felt a lump of emotion in her throat. A few minutes later, he returned with the little one asleep in his arms again, placed her gently in her cot, and came back to the living room in silence. You're learning very quickly, she commented, proud of his progress. I have the best teacher in the world, he replied, and there was a sincerity in those words that made her heart race. They sat on the sofa again, this time side by side, no furniture between them creating distance. The proximity was natural, comfortable. You know, Chioma began, looking at her own hands. Since I got here, I was afraid of getting emotionally involved, of forming bonds that could hurt me. But today, listening to you sing to Kehinde, I realized it already happened a long time ago. There's no turning back. Adekunle turned his head to look at her better. So, maybe the question now isn't if we'll get involved or not, but how we're going to manage this involvement that already exists. She nodded slowly. Maybe you're right. There was a moment of comfortable silence, full of unsaid possibilities. He could hear her breathing, and she could hear his. The atmosphere between them was different from any other moment they had experienced. Can I ask you a personal question? Adekunle broke the silence. You can try. I don't promise to answer. Before you came to work here, had you ever been truly in love? Chioma thought for a few seconds, deciding how much she wanted to reveal. I had something I thought was true love. A young man from the neighborhood where I used to live. He said he was going to get me out of domestic work, that we would start a small business together. She paused, remembering. I believed every word. Then I found out he had another woman and a child in another town. When I confronted him, he laughed in my face and said I was just a temporary distraction. Adekunle felt anger towards that stranger who had hurt her. He was a complete idiot. At the time, I thought I had lost the love of my life. Today, I see I only lost a waste of my time. But I learned not to believe in pretty promises easily. He nodded, understanding her mistrust. That's why I'm trying not to promise anything I can't deliver. I can't promise we'll never argue, that we'll never disagree on how to raise the girls, that my family will accept you with open arms. Adekunle looked directly into her eyes. But I can promise absolute respect. I can promise I won't embarrass you, that I won't hide you as if you were something wrong. If we ever decide to be together officially, it will be in front of everyone, never in secret. Chioma looked at him for long seconds, weighing each word. Just hearing that already makes half of my fears disappear. The other half, we'll face together when the time comes, he completed. She breathed more easily, more confidently. There's something else I wanted to ask, but I don't know if it's too invasive. Ask. I won't be offended. Do you still love Funka? Adekunle took a few seconds to organize his answer. Yes, but in a different way. Now it's not a love that demands physical presence, because she's not here anymore. It's an enormous affection, gratitude for the family we built together, a sweet nostalgia for the beautiful things we lived. He paused, choosing his words. But at the same time, I felt my whole life stop the day she died. I was stuck on that horrible day for months. When you arrived, without meaning to, you started to unfreeze that stopped clock inside me. Chioma listened with total attention. Today, I can look to the future without feeling guilty. I don't think loving someone else disrespects what I had with her. Funke herself told me that if anything happened, she wanted me to be happy, for the girls to grow up in a house full of affection. Chioma swallowed, moved. Did she really say that? She did. Not that I believed it at the time. I thought it was a theoretical, distant conversation. But now, when I see Taiwo and Kehinde running after you through the house, laughing, playing, I think that this might be exactly the kind of affection she wanted for her daughters. Emotion took over Chioma's face again. I'm afraid of occupying a place that doesn't belong to me. But I'm also afraid of leaving, and leaving an even bigger hole in their lives. There are already too many holes since they lost their mother, Adekunle said firmly. I won't allow another unnecessary one to be created. You being here is good for everyone. For them, for me, and I hope for you too. She smiled more confidently. When you talk like that, I believe that maybe we can really try. I don't want to pressure you to decide anything today, he reinforced. I just wanted you to know that what you feel isn't one-sided. I also think about you much more than I should. I find myself counting the hours to come home and hear your voice telling me about their day. Adekunle leaned slightly towards her. When you take your day off on the weekend, the house feels strange. The smell changes, the sounds change, everything is different, as if a fundamental piece is missing. Chioma agreed with a soft smile. It's the same for me. When I go to visit my friend in my old neighborhood, it feels like I'm far from home. And I realize that my real home is now here, with the three of you. They looked at each other again, and there was a silent truth in that sentence that needed no exaggerated romanticizing. Adekunle slowly reached out his arm and lightly touched her shoulder. Then let's just accept that this is our home and see what we do with that reality. She smiled, finally relaxing completely. Deal. They stayed up late talking, discussing simple details of daily life that, in a way, were building the solid foundation of this new family configuration. Chioma talked about the girls' favorite books, about how Kehinde liked to sleep holding the hem of her apron, about how Taiwo pretended to read to imitate her father. Adekunle shared memories of when Funke was pregnant, his fear of being a father to twins, the indescribable joy when he saw them both for the first time. There was no heavy or melancholic mood, just a slow, solid construction of true intimacy. When the living room clock struck almost midnight, Chioma stood up to go to bed. They'll be up early, full of energy. I'd better get some rest. Adekunle also stood up. The two of them stood face to face, only inches apart. The tension in the air was palpable but respectful. Thank you for saying all of this today, he said sincerely. It was easier to pretend nothing was happening, but it wasn't honest. Pretending doesn't work when you're taking care of children, she replied wisely. They can feel any lie in the air, any unresolved issue between the adults. There was a brief moment when they both seemed about to move closer, but Chioma took a small step back, maintaining the boundary they had set. Good night, Adekunle. Good night, Chioma. She turned and walked down the hallway to her room. He remained in the living room, watching her shadow disappear into the darkness. His heart was calm, but hopeful. He knew that from that night on, nothing would ever be the same between them. In the days that followed, their silent pact began to work perfectly. They maintained their established routine, but now every gesture had a new, conscious meaning. At breakfast, their hands touched by accident more often, and neither pretended it hadn't happened. While helping Taiwo with a jigsaw puzzle, Adekunle and Chioma's faces would sometimes get too close, and one would pull back with a discreet, knowing smile. The twins sensed the adults' closeness in their own particular way. Kehinde started calling for both of them when she woke up in the morning, yelling from her room, "Daddy, Chioma, come here together." It was a call that united the three of them, as if they were already a natural family unit. On a sunny Saturday, Adekunle decided to take everyone to a nearby park. It was the first time the four of them went out together for something other than a doctor's appointment or school. He packed a bag with water, fruit, and biscuits, following all of Chioma's detailed instructions. In the car, the girls giggled in the back seat, side by side, telling silly jokes only they understood. Chioma sat in the front, a bit awkward, as she had never been on a family outing where she wasn't just the responsible employee. "Relax," Adekunle said, noticing her discomfort. "Today, you are officially on a day off within an outing. You don't have to carry anything heavy or watch the time." I don't know how to be on a day off on a family outing, she admitted honestly. I've always been on the side that serves and organizes, never on the side that simply enjoys. Well, today you'll learn. It's part of the new agreement in our house. At the park, the girls ran straight to the playground. Adekunle and Chioma sat on a nearby bench, watching and talking. At one point, Taiwo tripped coming down the slide and fell, scraping her knees on the sandy ground. Before Adekunle could react, Chioma was already kneeling beside the little girl, gently blowing on the scrape. He ran over to them, his heart pounding, but seeing the two of them together, he saw something beautiful in that scene of care. "Does it hurt a lot, princess?" he asked, kneeling as well. Taiwo made a dramatic pout. "A little, but Chioma already blew on it, and it's better. Do you want Daddy to blow on it too, just to be sure?" The girl nodded enthusiastically. He bent down, blew gently on his daughter's knee, then gave it a light kiss. When he stood up, his eyes met Chioma's. There was pride and tenderness in her gaze. The four of them spent the whole afternoon at the park, playing, laughing, having a picnic on the grass. At one point, while the girls played in the sand under the warm sun, Adekunle and Chioma sat on a bench, just watching and enjoying the moment. "It's been a long time since I've had a day like this," he commented, relaxed. "No urgent meetings, no emergency calls, no time pressure, just this." "Your work commitments are important too," she said, discreetly pointing to his phone in his pocket. "But this is what stays in your memory forever." He agreed completely. "You're right again." She gave a playful smile. "I'm going to start charging for family consulting by the hour." "Charge away. I'll pay in homemade chin-chin, in special Sunday breakfasts, in more outings like this." She laughed, but the laughter brought a faint blush to her cheeks, because the phrases sounded too intimate, like promises of a future together. "Be careful what you promise," she warned lightly. "The girls might hold you to it later." "They can hold me to anything, and you can too." He said the last part in a lower, more significant tone. Chioma looked away, focusing on the girls, but the smile remained on her face. Time passed, and the silent bond between them grew naturally. There were no kisses, no intimate hugs, no open declarations, but there was a set of gestures and glances that any observer would recognize as something beyond a strictly professional relationship. One night, it rained heavily in the city. The sound of the drops on the roof filled the house. The twins had been afraid of thunder since they were little. Chioma was in their room, sitting between the two beds, holding a hand of each girl. Adekunle came to the door and leaned against the frame. "Need help?" he asked softly. "They're nervous about the storm," Chioma explained. "Maybe if they hear their father's voice, they'll calm down." He entered and sat on the edge of Taiwo's bed. "When I was a boy, I was also afraid of heavy rain," he said, in a gentle voice. "My grandfather used to say it was just the sky washing all the dirt from the air to make everything cleaner." Taiwo looked at him with interest. "And did you believe him, Daddy?" "Today I know it's just normal rain, but I like to think that after it passes, the air really does feel lighter and cleaner." Chioma watched the interaction between father and daughter with a deep tenderness in her chest. Kehinde tugged on the sleeve of her blouse. "Stay with us until the rain stops, Chioma." "I will, my love. I'm not going anywhere." Adekunle and Chioma looked at each other over the girls' heads. The image of the four of them squeezed into a small room, listening to the rain together, seemed like a perfect summary of the family they were building. After the children finally fell asleep, they left quietly, closed the door carefully, and walked down the hallway in comfortable silence. In the living room, the lamplight created a warm, intimate atmosphere. "Thank you for not leaving after our conversation," Adekunle said, stopping near her. "I thought about it. I confess, I spent a whole day wondering if it wouldn't be safer to distance myself before things got too complicated. But every time I got near the door with my bag, one of the girls would call me for something." She smiled at the memory. "I couldn't abandon them." "I'm glad you couldn't." He took another step closer. This time, Chioma didn't automatically retreat. "Adekunle, I have a question that won't leave my mind," she said, looking directly at him. "Ask. If, at some point, we decide to really move forward with this, how do you imagine telling everyone? Your mother? The people at your company? The girls' school teachers?" He thought for a few seconds, formulating an honest answer. "I imagine telling the simple truth, that I met an extraordinary woman inside my own home. That this woman took care of my daughters during one of the worst times of our lives, and that, over time, I fell in love with her in a completely natural way." Adekunle paused. "If anyone finds that wrong or inappropriate, that's their problem, not ours." Chioma let out a slow, relieved breath. "It sounds so simple when you explain it like that. It won't be simple in practice. I know that." There will be gossip. There will be judgment. There will be people who won't understand. But I can guarantee one thing. You will not face any of it alone. If we decide to join our lives, it will be exactly like we do with the girls now. Always side by side. She looked at him with a mix of fear and hope growing in her chest. And what if it all really works out? Adekunle smiled faintly, with genuine affection. If it all works out, one day we'll look back and realize that this rainy night was the beginning of a story that was worth every difficult moment. Chioma's eyes shone with tears of emotion. I still don't know if I deserve all this. You deserve it, and much more than you can see. You've already given more true love to my daughters in a few months than many of their own family members have in years. She took a deep breath, as if wanting to capture that sentence and keep it in her heart. Then let's do this, she suggested with more firmness. I accept to stay here. I accept that we try to find out where this will lead. But I want, for now, for the absolute priority to remain the girls. If at any moment we realize that our involvement is harming them in any way, we stop immediately. Agreed. Adekunle nodded without hesitation. They are our moral compass in all of this. Chioma chuckled softly. Moral compass. Sorry, I spoke formally again. No, I understood perfectly. It means we will always follow what is best for them, not for us. Exactly. That's right. Then it's a real deal. They moved a little closer. The rain outside began to lessen, but the sound still filled the house with a calming rhythm. Adekunle raised his hand, hesitated for a second, and then touched his fingers to Chioma's face, brushing away a strand of hair that had escaped from her ponytail. She held her breath but didn't move away. The touch was simple, delicate, quick. Even so, they both knew they had crossed an important and definitive line. Good night, Chioma, he murmured, his voice slightly hoarse. Good night, Adekunle, she replied, her voice trembling with emotion. In the following weeks, their routine continued with this new layer of conscious intimacy. Every small gesture seemed part of a script they were writing together without a plan, but with total sincerity. One day, Taiwo fell ill with a high fever. The school called Adekunle in the middle of an important meeting with investors. He and Chioma rushed to the emergency room with the girl in their arms, while Kehinde stayed with a trusted neighbor. It was the first time they faced a medical scare together as true partners. In the hospital waiting room, Adekunle paced back and forth, anxious and nervous, while Chioma stood by his side, firm as a rock. Breathe deeply, she would say, placing a hand on his arm to calm him. The doctor said it's just a common virus, nothing serious, nothing dangerous. I know she said that, he would reply, but my body can't relax. Seeing her so weak, with no energy, Chioma squeezed his arm more firmly, transmitting security. You are not alone in this. I am here. We are in this together. He stopped pacing and looked at her with deep gratitude. That makes all the difference in the world to me. When they finally returned home with Taiwo, medicated and sleepy, the twins insisted on sleeping together in the same bed, and Chioma offered to spend the night in their room, monitoring the fever. Adekunle brought a mattress and lay down on the floor beside the bed. You don't have to stay, she suggested carefully. You can sleep in your comfortable bed. I'll take care of everything here. I can't, he retorted firmly. I want to be close when she needs me. The four of them spent the night in the same room, in a silence filled with worry and mutual affection. The next day, the fever had completely passed. Taiwo was playing on the living room rug as if nothing had happened, full of renewed energy. Adekunle prepared a hearty breakfast for everyone, including Chioma. Thank you, she said, holding the warm mug between her hands. No one has ever made a special breakfast for me like this. Get used to it, he replied, looking directly into her eyes. You are now part of the team of people who deserve to be cared for in this house. She stared at him for a moment, feeling the positive weight of that sentence. If you keep talking like that, one day my heart won't be able to handle so much happiness. That's exactly what I'm hoping for, he returned, half jokingly, half completely serious. They both laughed, but they knew that behind the lightness was a deep and real truth. The more time passed, the clearer it became that the feeling between them was not fleeting, nor based solely on their situation. Still, neither of them took the final step. It was as if they were waiting for a clear sign, something to show that it was the right time to change everything officially. That sign came in a way neither of them expected. On a Friday afternoon, the girls' school organized a small presentation for Family Day. Each child was supposed to be accompanied by who they considered their true family. Adekunle left the office early, canceling an important meeting. Chioma dressed the twins in matching pink dresses with coordinating bows in their hair. In the car on the way to school, Taiwo asked a question that took them both by surprise. "Daddy, is Chioma going to sit with us in the front?" "Of course she is," he answered naturally. "Why do you ask?" "Because teacher said we should bring our daddy, mummy, grandma, those family people. I told her I was bringing daddy and Chioma. Then she asked if Chioma was my real auntie or just the woman who works in our house." Taiwo continued with the total innocence of a child. "I didn't know how to answer properly." Chioma clasped her hands in her lap, uncomfortable with the situation. Adekunle took a deep breath, knowing this was one of those moments that would define everything. "What did you tell her, my daughter?" "I said that Chioma is the one who helps us sleep without being scared, who gives us yummy food, who helps with our bath, who hugs us when we cry, who plays with us, and who takes care of us." The teacher didn't really have an answer. "So, what is she then?" Silence filled the car for a few important seconds. Adekunle looked in the rearview mirror at Chioma, who was watching him with a tense face, waiting for his answer. Then he looked at his daughters and replied with absolute firmness, "Chioma is our family. It doesn't matter what other people think or say. What matters is what we feel here, in our hearts." The girls smiled, completely satisfied with the simple and direct answer. Chioma, on the other hand, felt her eyes discreetly fill with tears of emotion. At the school presentation, when Taiwo and Kehinde's names were announced, they both ran to the small stage, holding Adekunle's and Chioma's hands, one on each side. A few curious glances and quiet murmurs arose from the audience of parents, but the children didn't notice anything. They sang their rehearsed song with joy, and at one point, when the lyrics spoke of a caring heart, Taiwo pointed to Adekunle and Kehinde pointed to Chioma. The teacher noticed the gesture and smiled with approval. On their way out of the school, a few mothers approached with poorly disguised curiosity. They asked who Chioma was. "She's the person who helps me take care of my daughters since they lost their mother," Adekunle answered with complete naturalness, without lowering his eyes or showing any embarrassment. "They love her, and I trust her completely." One of the mothers made a cutting remark with a judgmental tone. These house helps who become almost family, right? But it's always good to maintain a certain professional distance." Adekunle felt his blood boil. "The only distance I maintain is from people who judge without knowing the story," he replied in a firm but controlled tone. "Only the people who truly make a positive difference for my girls stay close to me." Chioma heard the whole conversation and tried to intervene to avoid a bigger conflict, but he had already made his position clear to everyone. Driving back home, the atmosphere was a little tense because of the unpleasant episode, but the girls, tired from the presentation, fell asleep in the back seat almost immediately. "You didn't have to speak to their classmate's mother like that," Chioma commented, looking out the window. "Yes, I did," Adekunle replied without hesitation. "I am tired of people looking at you as if you're invisible, or as if you have no real value. I'm used to those kinds of comments," she tried to downplay it. "Well, I'm not, and I don't want my daughters growing up thinking that someone they love is less important just because she receives a salary at the end of the month." Chioma looked at him, touched by the way he had defended her. "That kind of attitude will put you against a lot of important people. If I have to choose a side, I am on the side of the three of you. Always. Without exception." The words came out with a firmness that left no room for doubt. That night, after the girls were asleep, exhausted from their performance, Adekunle called Chioma to talk in the living room. She came, a little apprehensive, thinking he was going to apologize for the confrontation at the school or propose some change because of the comments. Instead, she found Adekunle sitting on the sofa with a white envelope in his hand. "What's this?" she asked, sitting in the armchair opposite him. "I know we agreed to take it slow. I know we said we would let things happen at the girls' natural pace, and that still holds true completely." He took a deep breath. "But today, hearing our daughters ask, 'Who are you, really?' I realize that I also need to make it very clear what your real place is here." He held out the envelope. "Before you open it, I want you to promise you'll hear me out to the end, without interrupting." Chioma took it slowly, not quite understanding. "I promise," she murmured, curious and nervous. Adekunle leaned forward, looking directly into her eyes, preparing his next words, knowing that from that point on, their story would take a definitive turn from which there would be no going back, and that the decision he was about to announce would forever change how everyone saw that household. Then, looking directly into her brown eyes, he said, with all the sincerity of his heart, "Chioma, I want you to stop being my employee and accept to be my partner in life. Not just in caring for the girls, but in everything. I want you to be my true companion." Chioma sat motionless, holding the envelope, Adekunle's words echoing in the silent room. She looked from the white paper to him, trying to process the magnitude of what she had just heard. My true companion, she repeated slowly, as if testing the weight of the words. Do you have any idea what you are asking me? Adekunle nodded with absolute firmness. I have a total idea. I've thought about this for weeks. I've thought about all the implications, all the problems we might face, all the opinions we're going to hear, and the conclusion is always the same. He gestured towards the envelope. Open it, please. Chioma slid her finger under the flap, tearing it carefully. Inside were 2 documents. The first was a termination of her employment contract, with all payments calculated, including severance and entitlements, signed by him. The second was a proposal for a court marriage, with his details filled in, waiting only for her signature. I am firing you, Adekunle said, his voice firm but affectionate, because I cannot be in a relationship with the woman who works for me. It wouldn't be fair to you. It wouldn't be ethical on my part. Chioma looked at the papers, her hands trembling slightly. Adekunle, this is too fast. We haven't even been out for dinner alone yet. We have dinner together every day, for months, he countered. We've cared for 2 sick children in the middle of the night. We've faced tantrums at the supermarket. We've organized the routine of an entire household. We've already lived through the hardest part of a relationship. She placed the papers in her lap, taking a deep breath. People will say I planned this from day one. Adekunle stood up, took the 2 steps that separated them, and knelt on the rug right in front of her. I don't care what people will say. Today at the school, my daughters had to explain who you were, and I realized the word employee no longer fits. You are the woman who saved my family. You are the woman I want to see when I wake up for the next 50 years. Chioma closed her eyes, the first tear falling. I'm so scared. Scared of not being enough for your world. Scared that you'll wake up one day and realize you confused loneliness with love. Adekunle took her hands, which were clutching the documents. I'm a businessman. I deal with risks every day, and I can assure you, the only real risk here is us losing the chance to be happy if we keep pretending we're just an ogre and his house help. He squeezed her hands. Sign the termination letter. The money will be in your account tomorrow. The marriage certificate, you keep it. Sign it when you are absolutely sure. Chioma opened her eyes and met his determined gaze. The vulnerability he showed, kneeling there, putting the control in her hands, broke down her final defenses. If I sign the termination, I lose my room in the boys' quarters. You'll have to share the master bedroom with me, he confirmed, smiling. I've already cleared out 3 drawers and half the wardrobe for you. The mention of the prepared space made her understand this was no impulse. He had planned it all. You cleared the drawers last night. The space is there, waiting. Chioma touched his face. I don't have nice clothes to put in those big drawers. We'll buy new clothes. Or you can keep wearing your simple ones. I fell in love with you, not your clothes. She took the pen from the table, signed the termination letter, then folded the marriage document and put it in her pocket. The termination is signed. As of this minute, I no longer work for you. Adekunle held her face in his hands. Then I can finally do what I've wanted to do for months. He kissed her. It wasn't urgent or desperate. It was calm, firm, full of recognition and promise. When they parted, their foreheads remained touching. Tomorrow, when the girls wake up, what will we tell them? We'll tell them Chioma doesn't wear a uniform anymore, that she'll have breakfast at the same table as us, and that she'll sleep in Daddy's room because we've decided to take care of each other. The transition happened naturally. The next morning, Chioma woke up in Adekunle's bed. When the twins ran into the room, they stopped for 3 seconds upon seeing her sitting up in the large bed. Taiwo was the first to react, jumping on the bed. Chioma slept here today. Adekunle pulled the duvet over his daughter. She did, and she will sleep here every day now. Chioma is my girlfriend. Kehinde ran to the bed too. Girlfriend like in the cartoons? Adekunle laughed loudly. Just like in the cartoons, but without dragons and castles. The first month was one of adjustment. Adekunle hired a cleaning company. Chioma resisted at first, but he would gently stop her whenever he saw her cleaning. You are not an employee in this house. Come and sit on the sofa with me. The real challenge came from the outside world. 2 weeks later, Adekunle's mother showed up for a surprise visit. Chioma was in the living room with the girls, building a castle with blocks. She was wearing jeans and a yellow blouse. When Adekunle opened the door, his mother's expression changed upon seeing the scene. Adekunle, what is going on here? Why is the house girl sitting in the living room out of uniform, playing with my granddaughters? Adekunle put the jug on the table, his face hardening. Mama, lower your voice. The girls are here. His mother ignored him. What is this woman doing in the middle of my family dressed like that? Adekunle took Chioma's hand. This woman's name is Chioma. She is not the house girl. She is my partner. We are living together. The silence was sharp. His mother took a deep breath. You have gone mad. Funke's death has destroyed your senses. You put the maid in your wife's bed? Do you have any idea of the scandal? Chioma tried to pull her hand away, but Adekunle held it tighter. The only thing that destroyed my senses was trying to raise 2 daughters alone while you were traveling and calling once a month. The words came out like stones. Funke died. I mourned for a year. My daughters stopped eating, sleeping, laughing. And the person who fixed that was not our wealthy family. It was Chioma. His mother pointed at Chioma. She is an opportunist. She saw a rich, widowed man and made her move. Before Adekunle could reply, Chioma stepped forward. Mama, with all due respect, I did not come here looking for a husband. I came here looking for work so I would not starve. I cleaned your son's toilets with pride because it was honest work. If your son lost all his money today, I would still be here tomorrow morning, making breakfast and taking the girls to school. Because what keeps me here is not a bank account. It's the fact that I found people who look me in the eye and treat me like a human being. His mother was speechless. Adekunle had a proud smile on his face. Did you hear the lady of the house? Chioma is my choice. If you want to see your granddaughters grow up, you will treat Chioma with respect. If you cannot, the door is right there. She snatched her handbag abruptly. You will regret this decision. She left, slamming the door. Kehinde started crying at the loud noise. Chioma rushed to her. Don't cry, my love. It was just a loud noise. Adekunle hugged them both. You were incredible. I thought I was going to faint, but then I remembered I'm not alone anymore, that we are a team. The following months solidified that team. The marriage certificate was signed on an ordinary Tuesday, 6 months later. They went to the registry, signed the papers, and took the girls for ice cream. Taiwo and Kehinde started calling Chioma Mummy Chioma, naturally. One day, Taiwo fell at school, and when they asked who to call, she replied, call my mummy, Chioma. 2 years passed. The house was different. Photos of the 4 of them were on the furniture. Toys in the living room were not a source of stress but a sign of life. Adekunle left the office at 6 p.m. sharp. One Friday, after making pizza and messing up the entire kitchen, they finished cleaning up together. You know what I was thinking? She asked, leaning against the counter. What? About my first day here when you gave me the list of chores and went straight to your study without even asking if I had eaten lunch. Adekunle grimaced. I was a terrible ogre. You were broken. We both were. I was running from unjust accusations and closed doors. You were running from pain and the fear of not knowing how to care for your daughters. She wrapped her arms around his waist. We found each other at the worst moment of our lives. Adekunle pulled her into a tight embrace. And we turned that worst moment into the best thing that has ever happened to me. He kissed the top of her head. I had a mansion but no home. I had employees but no family. Chioma rested her head on his chest. Your mother hasn't spoken to you in 2 years. Do you miss her? I miss the idea of having a present mother, but not the judgment, the arrogance. My focus now is the girls, and you. If she ever understands that love doesn't check bank accounts, the door will be open. He pulled back to look into her eyes. I never asked you this officially. We just lived it. We signed a paper. We let it happen. But I want to ask. I want it on the record. Ask what? Adekunle held her face. Do you regret staying? Regret taking on the mess that was my life? Regret trading your freedom for 2 children and a complicated widower? Chioma didn't need to think. The answer was rooted in her love for Taiwo and Kehinde, in the safety of Adekunle's arms, in the family built from the rubble of 2 broken lives. She smiled, her eyes shining with an absolute certainty that filled every corner of that house. I spent my whole life cleaning other people's houses to survive, Ade. But it was only when I decided to clean the sorrow from this house that I finally found my own home.